Great, fantastic. I didn't hook up my mic, but I can if you'd like. It's up to you.
You sound pretty good. Your vinyl
Good,
in the background is creating a good buffer.
good. Yeah, that's why I've got it all.
That's
That's
why
why I
you put
collected
it
it for
there.
so many years. Exactly.
It's got mass.
It's got masks. All of the Halloween 3 masks give good resonance.
Geoff Garlock is here. I'm not sure what he wants to call himself. I know he's a creator. He's also a musician. He's done a lot of writing, and
Yeah.
but you'll tell me, Geoff, what you put on the slip when you come back into the country.
Yeah.
That's an
Wait.
Australian thing. I don't think of that.
No, no. I got caught up there. I'll have to. I'll see if I have to move with my Zoom. Sometimes it gets funky in this back office.
No, you're okay.
Okay, good. Yeah, no, I'm a Renaissance man. Is what I joke. I don't know what I am. I do it all. I don't. It's hard to know what to write down on my customs form often.
Yeah, that's it.
Because also then they're like, "Oh, you make money off of that?" And it's like, let's not go crazy.
Yeah, come on now.
Yes, it's always
In this
unclear.
economy, is a joke
Please,
that
yes,
that's what you'd like to
exactly.
crack.
That's what I always say for at least 20 years now. They're like, Garlock, the economy changes. I was like, my career does not. But
But
yeah, I do quite a bit.
so you're a former UCB kid?
Yes, yeah.
Hmm.
I did. I took improv. Me and the singer of Panthers and Orchid both took improv at UCB in around 2002, 2003. I want to say so. It was like pretty early on. It was at the old theater in Chelsea before, or not even in Chelsea. It was in 22nd Street. Um, and then I took a long break because I had a record come out, and that was the excuse I gave for the fact that I wasn't very good at improv and I didn't really like doing it that much. And then I was on enough breaks from tour, and my now wife had heard me complain about wanting to do comedy again. So she bought me a gift certificate for half of a sketch class. And then I took sketch and then kind of didn't look back from there. Took a bunch of classes, ended up on one of the first mod teams, which was sketch teams there, the house teams, and then ended up teaching for 8 years. And
Wow.
yeah, I was there for a long time
Holy
through
moly.
all of the issues that they have.
Your story, somewhat without the hard rocking, reminds me of Kurt Brownola,
Oh, yeah.
who did it for a long time before he sort of busted out.
Yeah.
And yours are so similar. Looks,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
everything is the same.
Yeah. I mean, Kurt's great. I never knew it, but like he was right when I was starting, he was doing stuff. He was in a group called Neutrino,
Yeah.
which did they were doing. I remember I was just talking about this recently. I remember walking down in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and being like, who are these idiots in American Apparel with video cameras? I'm trying to get to a sketch show. And then I got there and it was Neutrino doing a video improv that they like worked into the live show.
Oh,
And I was like,
great.
oh, okay, this is impressive. This guy's impressive.
Yes, we love.
Especially when you're doing it for like 10 people and you're like,
Yeah.
it's even more so impressive, I
Oh,
think.
we love Kurt. Kurt's an old friend. Geoff is our new friend, and he's got a lot of podcasts.
Yes, I do.
So I became aware of you because, look, I think we're friends, Jason Gore and I. And he starts his live Instagram little shows way too early. I wake up at 5 a.m. He insists on doing them between 4 and 5. But for some reason, my phone buzzed and I looked at my phone. And I said, oh, who's this goofy looking guy? He looks cool. And in between drifting in and out of sleep, I caught most of the chat. And I thought, I think this Geoff Garlock is a guy that I need to know a bit more about. But podcast wise, the Canon,
Yep.
just a paragraph on that.
Yeah, the Canon is a podcast I do with my buddy Frank Garcia Hale. And we are documenting all of the Canon Production Film Group, which was one of the greatest production houses from the 80s. All of your Chuck Bronsons, your JCVDs, Jean-Claude Van Damme, your Chuck Norris. And then they also did like John Frankenheimer films. Cassavetes films. They were these two gregarious Israeli filmmakers who would, at the height, pumped out 40 to 45 movies a year, and would sell movies before they even made them. And we both loved them. And then every week we do a new one. And kind of branch out into our could have been a canons, which are movies that should have been made by Canon at some point.
Yeah, that's why I want to. I want to bring this one up. I don't know whether you know it. I don't think it's
Silent Rage. Yeah, I think it isn't a Canon, but should be a Canon.
Yeah.
I'm blanking on who was the production company, but it's one we'll cover.
Top Kick. Top Kick sounds like one of Chuck's.
Yeah.
With the karate.
Because it would also be interesting because you would probably have a different production company behind it.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Because it also gets in a lot of those, you get into like who bought the video. Like we recently realized that there are all these movies we could cover because Canon bought HBO video for only European releases. So they just shoved their logo on there. But yeah, no, Silent Rage is great. Totally weird, like surprising. Like you're like, wait, this is going to be a kind of a sci-fi Hulk movie with Norris. We call him Molasses 2x4 on the podcast as a kickin' marshal or whatever he is in that. You find out a lot about the different law enforcement. A lot of kicks. He's always going to get some kicks in.
But I was really surprised by that because the baddie didn't die. Look, hey, spoiler alert, just let me give you a few seconds. I mean, it is 40 years old.
I mean, it's 83, 84. So yes, if you haven't watched Silent Rage yet, it'll be on Pluto TV streaming.
We've left a big enough gap.
Yes.
So spoiler alert, but the baddie doesn't die at the end. And I thought, Silent Rage 2, but no.
I don't think Silent Rage 1 did well enough for them. They just were moved on to the 20th, 40th Chuck Norris movie.
But remember, my big brother was a video, what would you call him? Cassette salesman. Like he worked for one of the video companies called Video Classics. And this was one of their big releases for the month. So
I'm sure.
Not great.
Yeah.
Not good. But anyway.
Was this back in the day he was working for Video Classics?
Yeah. He's a lot older than I.
So that would have been like when they were selling. Like we're good friends with the guy who wrote the Austin Trunick wrote the Canon Film Guide, and he gets his hands on lots of great like video ads. He goes, that was when it was $99 for a video store to buy it. Like if you were going to buy it, it was $99 for Silent Rage because they didn't believe that we were going to be renting these things.
Yeah, well, I remember he used to get really excited because he'd say, I'm going down to Bob's Video, and he's a big customer. He might buy 15 copies of the Never Ending Story or whatever. Yeah,
exactly.
And that was going to be like $1,500, so a big sale, particularly back in those days.
I bet your brother has a lot of swag. I would love to get my hands on him.
He doesn't.
That kills me.
He's what you call a biker, and I call a bikey over here. So he sort of lives. He's not a nomad or anything like that.
Right.
Wouldn't hold on to stuff from the early 80s.
Yeah, that's sad. He's not a pack rat like me.
No, look, I wish I was a pack rat. Oh my God, the things I could have if I was that way inclined. I just tend to keep a lot of bolts and nuts.
You never know when you need them. You never know. It's just...
You never know when you're going to need 1,400 nuts.
Exactly.
Next podcast, hey, what's that from? This is the one that I'm least associated with, even though I've listened to a couple of episodes.
Sure. So, what's that from is me and my buddy Nate. We're old UCB friends, and it was kind of right before the pandemic, honestly. We were like, let's just do this podcast just for us. And it really was at first just for us, like the amount of people listening. But it's in the most lofty terms, I call it the Karl Ove Knausgaard of podcasts. Like it's just like one long conversation of us remembering things. Because most of our relationship is doing a quote from an old SNL and then being like, do you know what that's from? And then honestly, as the podcast has gone on, it has become also our therapy, talking about our career, talking about being a creative, what a kind of nightmare it is to live in this world, and one of the reasons why we remember vacant lot sketches. But yeah, it's really fun, and I'm always super proud of that one, and it really is like on my end one of the least work. It's just turn it on and see where the conversation goes.
One episode, I think it might have been the latest or near the latest, it was a big expose between a couple of guests, a male and female guest, and you really went deep, and that one went super long, and I didn't think I had much left to learn about show business, and not that I'm really in it, but I mean, I take a lot of it in. And that was a real lesson in how to be and how to go and how it went for people in your age range, late 30s, early 40s, sort of stuff, which now I'm in my early 50s. I'm not losing touch with, but I don't know that much about.
And I'm starting to lose touch on my end too. But it is like, it's both me and Nate are big therapy junkies and then also comedy junkies. So it really is just like the merging, and constantly we're like in the loftiest terms, like looking for the ultimate truth and reality behind everything, including why comedy is made, why you would kill yourself to do all this dumb stuff. But I love it. I think it's super fun. Check it out, people.
Yeah, no, that's a really good one. Docs Till Death is, it's so much rock. It's rock all the time. Yeah, but I like that one. You can pick and choose the docs that you have an association with. So I like that. I think most people podcast imbibers are happy admitting that they'll pick and choose a little bit, but it's a lot of fun too.
Well, thank you. Yeah, Docs Till Death is me and two old punk friends. And yeah, it's almost like, again, the continuation of a conversation we have anyways, which is like kind of reanalyzing punk and hardcore, because that's what we all came from. And it's super important to me, but is also, like all things, worthy of being made fun of, because you should make fun of everything and pick apart why you actually like it, especially as you get older. And so, yeah, Docs Till Death is, we're kind of just going through all of the documentaries on punk, because we're like, we're going to watch them anyways. It's why I also joke, as you keep going with the podcast, that I have like the Garlock niche network, essentially. It's just like, I just get more and more niche of like, oh, you want jokes about 1995, like American underground hardcore? Here you go, Docs Till Death. But I think it works for everyone, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't like music documentaries? I guess
exactly
who don't like music.
Well, that's the thing. Like we realized we're going to watch them anyways. Like the amount of docs that exist, and I'll watch every single one. If it's a band I don't care about, I'll still watch it.
Absolutely.
It's only sometimes length that keeps it. I can't stand the Grateful Dead, and I still have it on my list to watch that Grateful Dead doc. Like, because maybe I'll understand.
I get annoyed when there isn't a good doc. About like Thompson Twins, because I'm a kid of the 80s. There is not a good Thompson's Twins doc that I've found. If you come across it, please do forward it.
I will certainly pass it on. I have a list of ones where I'm like, I need a Skinny Puppy documentary.
Of course.
I was happy there was a Killing Joke one recently. Like, there's
Skinny Puppy. I had a friend, he's still a friend, and he was right into Skinny Puppy, and I said, this new band, Skinny Puppy. He said, new band, they're very old. Yeah. They're very, very old. And played me a little bit, and it wasn't for me. But
sure, understand. It's hardly for anyone, honestly. That's my bread and butter. I no one liked it when I was liking it as a kid. That was one of those beginnings.
Are all the Skinny Puppies still with us?
Yeah, Oh wait, no. Dwayne Gotel passed away, heroin overdose. But they're down to they still will put out stuff.
Accident can happen to
yeah.
anyone.
Yeah.
Talking about music, so I could not give one single solitary crap about prog, the first prog rock, the first 50 years of my life. But for some weird reason, now I'm into it. But how long have you been into it, Geoff? It's the show that never ends.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, my hard love of prog came legitimately. I was graduated from college. I was listening to nothing but hardcore pretty much at that point. And it dipped in and out. And then I remember I was driving up to New York to the loft I was going to live in, and then heard Yes. And I think it was Long Distance Runaround. And I'd heard it years because growing up in Connecticut, you're inundated with classic rock. But then all of a sudden, it was like that day, I remember it clicking and being like, this is like all the technical metal I listened to. Like, what the heck? And I remember the girl that I ended up dating briefly that I lived with in this loft was like, do you listen to anything but hardcore? And I was like, I like Yes. And then that started the snowball, as most genre loves start, of like one band, and then you're like, oh, this band, this band, this band. And I would say, I mean, the biggest turnaround was when, look, if you don't know Genesis, you think you know Genesis. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait a second. They have like, me and my good friend Mike, I think we decided there are 4 distinct Genesis eras. So you're like, there's 4 distinct Genesis eras. And they're all amazing. And they're all different. And wait, Peter Gabriel was in Genesis? And wait, this is what Foxtrot sounds like? I was only hearing Invisible Touch over and over and over. And that changes everything. And then you start getting deep and being like, okay, now I like krautrock. Now I'm going down the Tangerine Dream Komish, like cosmic music route. Oh, Magma? Uh-oh. Like now that I'm into Zool, that's a whole nother bag. And now I have a Magma tattoo and life is wild. But yeah, it's basically been since hardcore since like 1920. And that's like, it just gets deeper and deeper. Because it's also a slippery slope to new age and ambient music too. Like, you know.
Absolutely. And you've done some of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I've heard a person recently say that The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway is the best album ever. And I don't, you know, ever out of all of the albums.
I mean, that's a wild statement.
Yeah.
But there are days with my Genesis love, because it has become that Genesis is like the number one to me out of everything, because there's so many phases and they can give you kind of everything you need in a weird way. But then I still listen to thousands of other records. But also, between you and me, Lamb Lies is not my is not my favorite Genesis record. It has a lot of extra. Like, I think it's if it was one singular record, but it's like, it's not even completely a concept record. Like, Peter Gabriel gave up on it halfway through. Like, he was asking the other members to write it for him because he was trying to do a movie with William Friedkin that went nowhere. So he like set them up for this prog masterpiece, quote unquote, that would end up where Tony's got his piece and he's writing this. He's trying to write with a story that doesn't make any sense. Look, half of it is great, but selling them by the pound is
that's the one, isn't it? That's the one. And when it comes to Yes, I mean, they just never stop scrapping and fighting and hating each other.
Really
which
don't.
Is great. I saw a really long documentary about Yes, and what a band, what guys. Chris Squire, unfortunately, not with us anymore, so it can never be the same.
I'm glad I got to see them once with Chris Squire. It was like, even though he was wearing like leggings that I clearly were split down the middle, doing some crazy move, it was awesome. They opened with Close to the Edge, and you're just like, oh, this is what we're doing? Like, this is amazing. And I think he's top 5 bass playing inspirations for me. And his solo record might be the only good solo Yes record. Like Fish Out of Water is a great record. Never been a huge fan of the Steve Howe solo or the John Anderson solo. I always felt like they need the other members, but Chris Squire is nailing it.
I've never gone solo with Yes. I'm sorry, but
check out Fish Out of Water. It's a really solid record, because it's also Chris Squire wrote most of Yes stuff. So it's like, you're getting. I like bass starting bands. Sometimes those are great bands. You've got your Iron Maidens. You got your Chris Squires.
Chris Squire. All English guys. Can't think of any American ones. Flea. Australian, technically.
Sure. Jesus, exactly. Jesus Lizard, maybe to some extent.
Sure.
I mean, and then Carp and Big Business. But either way, Chris Squire. Check out Fish Out of Water.
There you go. There's a big rec from Geoff there, and cool. Can we mention all of your music in a couple of minutes?
Sure, probably. Also, just to throw in, there's an older podcast called Worst Gig Ever that I used to do. That's worth going into. We would talk to musicians and comedians, alternate every week, and just talk about how bad it was to be a musician and a comedian. We stopped doing that a while ago, but I brought it back and did it with Revolver magazine and did it just for metal bands for a while.
Yep.
But yeah, that's worth the list. Those are still some fun talks. We had some great talks on there. But yeah, music. The main things people know me from, my hardcore band Orchid that I was in. That's probably the band people like the most. I was also in a band called Panthers, which existed longer than Orchid, but people maybe liked not as much as Orchid.
This is just the one album on YouTube. Is that the one I'm listening to?
For Panthers?
Yeah.
No, Panthers had Are You Down, Untrouble Man, which was a full length. We're getting that up on streaming soon. Let's Get Serious, which was an EP that was on Steve Aoki's label, Dim Mak. Things Are Strange, which was our Vice debut and was a double LP. We're nuts. And then The Trick was our last record. That's the one I'm most proud of, but that was our last record on Vice Atlantic. Wow. And then we also had like a couple of like promo split 7 inches in there that you can find. But
punk loves a promo split.
Yeah, we really do. But yeah, and then I was in Low Estate, which is a metal band, still kind of do stuff now and then. Ritual Mess, which was with most of Orchid. The Year Is One, which was a 2-bass grindcore band. You can find that EP on Bandcamp. And some dribs and drabs in there. There's a new project coming. And then I love that I'm forgetting. I forgot that I put out an ambient record this year.
Yeah, sure.
And a half-hour song kind of reflecting on kind of my losing hearing. And then I put out a pandemic hardcore record with Jay, who sings in Panthers and Orchid, on drums. And those were actually all songs we wrote for Vice magazine for a documentary on travel that they had done like 10 years ago. And then during the pandemic, I put vocals on all of them. And put it out as a record called Your Vice, based off of a Giallo I love. Your Vice is a locked room and only I have the key.
Fantastic, Geoff. You're going good. And what's your bass of choice? Because I'm a bassist as well.
My number one is, was it a 93? It's a Fender Jazz, but it was a made in Japan cool. one that I bought. I got when we first signed to Vice. I had a Rickenbacker that I played for a long time, but I think just like the Rick is hard to not get the one tone.
It'll always sound like a Rick. It'll always sound a bit funky, which is great.
Yeah.
If you want,
or if you're doing like the Lemmy, you're going to sound like Lemmy. You know what I mean? Like versus the Jazz has a lot more kind of nuance and plays like a guitar with the rounded neck.
I'm a Music Man guy, which so I'm not very hardcore. But,
sure. I like a good Music Man now and then.
Very Music Man-y.
Yeah.
If that means anything. I guess now, have you got anything to do with this, or was it a joke? I'm going to share my screen here. Ba, 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 ba.
I'm going to get surprised with everything I forget in my life. Yes, that is me.
That's you.
Yep. I write all those.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. Those are books. Actually, the drummer of Panthers and Orchid is a children's book editor. And I moved a couple of years ago to California, and right before I moved, he was like, I think I might have a job for you. And they had these books that they wanted to convert to graphic novels and make them into kids and make them funnier, make the plots work, etc. So basically, yeah, I've written, it's called The Pup Detectives. Yeah. They're fun, kid, kind of film noir-y, sometimes detective stories about stuff happening at schools. There's a lot of puns. And I try to fit in a lot of Easter eggs as much as I can. Some John Carpenter references, or I'm a little spoily for an upcoming book. I'm hoping there's one about a Battle of the Bands coming next year, and there's definitely a bunch of crust punk jokes in there that I'm hoping make it past the editor. At one point, there's a sign on a practice space that says "No dogs, no masters," which is a "No gods, no masters" joke. And I'm just hoping it makes it in there. But I try my best to get jokes into these. So yeah, that's the Pup Detectives. I do all of those.
The big one.
That's the latest one, Mystery Mountain Getaway.
Why does it look all beat up? Is that
they were trying to, they're trying to replicate old pulp novels and like EC comics. So like kind of like Tales from the Crypt meets Parker novels almost.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was great. That. I was when it first came, because I actually maybe wrote 4 of them and hadn't even seen what the art would look like. And then when I got them, I was really jazzed on the covers, especially and the insides look great too, but the covers, I was like, oh yeah, this happens to be like the genre stuff I love anyways. Yeah, they're super fun. If you've got kids, get Pup Detectives for them.
I'm going to buy some for my nieces and nephews. I'm going to put this on, because it's time to talk classic rock radio.
Of course.
And I'm going to use my classic rock radio voice, Geoff.
Gotta get that classic rock radio voice. Welcome to Slice Radio.
Slice Radio.
Gaston. This is Slice Radio. And this is Geoff, the Angry Man Garlock, coming at you.
So angry. Not so much on the first episode, but it's building.
Yeah, I all of a sudden I was like, oh yeah, we're doing morning show. I should probably chill out.
Geoff, tell us a little bit about your history of 108.9 The Hawk and Jason Gore.
Yeah, 108.9 The Hawk.
Losing the mo. That's all right.
That is the problem with fake mustaches. That glue is not good most of the time.
No.
Yeah, 108.9 The Hawk is Valverde's only classic rock radio station. It's a podcast that came out of Jason, someone I knew from back at UCB in New York, and actually directed his wife in a bunch of her sketch shows. And he was coming out to here, and he wanted to start a Twitter called Good Rock Facts that was just fake classic rock facts.
He's a trickster. He's a trickster, that guy.
He is a trickster. He really is. And yeah, we just started doing that. And then all of a sudden we were like, we should do it as a radio show. And we did a couple on Spotify, and he handles most of it. But we did like full radio shows with songs. And then we decided we wanted to try to do it weekly. Him and me and Scordelis sometimes. And yeah, it's basically, we're doing it now as like a podcast with just the breaks. So you hear the little bits of the song. So it also does get exhausting. You don't really want to listen to that Humble Pie song all the way through. Sometimes. And then other times you're like, maybe I'll just get to the funny part. But yeah, both of us, he had a history in classic rock. Like he worked in classic rock station, which is amazing. And then I am both, what you've heard here, just babble about music nonstop, but also growing up in Connecticut and the States, Connecticut is like a hotbed of classic rock, and that's what we listen to. I listen to 99 Rock WPLR, New Haven. And so it's like burned into my brain what classic rock is. I mean, that's another reason why it took me so long to get into prog rock is you grow up on classic rock and you're like, there's only 2 songs.
Yeah.
Like I didn't listen to Sabbath till probably college because I was like, I listen to punk and the only songs that exist are Iron Man, maybe War Pigs, maybe. And then Iron Man again. Yeah. And Paranoid now and then. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait, they're the greatest band ever. They started all this shit. But yeah, and so 108.9 is a complicated, it's already eating itself. With the last episode we recorded, we're like, we need to like remember what everything is happening in this small town.
You need someone to write down the law.
Yeah, because it's like we keep coming up with businesses, and the one that came out today is like us getting attacked by the song Alice's Restaurant because it's Thanksgiving and they won't let us go. They just keep making us do our broadcast.
They won't let you go.
Yeah, we're in hour 6 when it starts, I believe. And Alice's Restaurant just keeps playing, and we hate that song. But yeah, we both just like, we've spent throughout the pandemic, we would sit there and text each other talking about classic rock anyways. And like our feelings on this and it's also fun because Jason has like definitely like we've got Venn diagram overlap and then different tastes. Like he can go deep on some things and then I'm like, oh, I was a punk. I don't know a lot about Stone Temple Pilots or what have you.
No.
But yeah, it's a totally weird show. I don't know who it's for, but I know it's for us.
Does Men at Work qualify?
I think Men at Work definitely can get in there, 100%. And we could even get a Midnight Oil in there if we're talking Aussie.
Yeah, I think we'd probably squeeze them in the top end.
They would show, and I mean, I would go towards. I mean, if we had some deep cut, it would be like getting Rose Tattoo in there. Is that also Rose Tattoo? Yeah.
Well, they're definitely. They're not punk.
No.
And they are rock. They're Aussie rock. But
Aussie rock.
Do they go classic? Because they don't have, say, the music.
They don't have a hit that would pop out. It would have to be some like if we did an episode on like if we do some deep dive episode. Like I could imagine us doing a deep dive 108.9 The Hawk, where we realize we're doing a deep dive in Australia. We only know 3 bands. So it just has to keep looping. I mean, I could go further, but, not on classic rock. There's only some bands that could fit in there,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's only 8 or 9 bands. So
kind of.
Are you a more than a feeling guy or a don't stop believing guy? You can't be both.
I'm a more than a feeling guy because my son, who's 4, loves Don't Stop Believing.
Oh, right. So too much.
It pushed it over the edge. Like, I mean, I already was a Boston man anyways.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we all want that super processed sound. We all want the rock man pedal that will make us sound like Boston.
Yeah. It's hard to imagine. I mean, the studios were a lot more primitive back then, but the vocal they got out of that guy, I don't know his name. I'll look it up.
I can always forget. Yeah, well, it's because I'm blanking on the guitar name, but he was an MIT engineer. Yeah. So he like made his own pedals. So he made that. He's the one who created that super compressed sound. It's insane.
With you, Geoff. When that comes in with the when the claps come in, you think, oh, here it comes. And that's Wells, and you love America, and you like Australia, and you think, come on.
You think Australia's fine now, whatever, it's cool.
But it's all about America. But Don't Stop Believing, also a good song.
It's a great song. I had the period where I was like, I love those first 3 Journey records because they sound like prog. They're not as good as
I'm going to
Don't Stop
continue
Believing.
listening to it until Steve Perry finally tells us what his major malfunction is.
Exactly. Exactly. Guy's got a lot of issues.
he's got one big one who doesn't want to tell us.
Yep, exactly.
I'm going to lose the tash for the outro here.
Understandable.
Because that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, 108.9 The Hawk is, if you like classic rock and like inane conversation about classic rock and local celebrities losing their minds.
It's men being silly.
It is just men being silly. It truly is men being silly. Every time we record after it's over, it's like, what was that? It's great.
That's good. Well, we love Geoff Garlock and we love Jason Gore and we love all your different projects, mate. And you've given me so much fun in the last few weeks researching your career thus far. And I know we're going to have so much fun in the future listening and watching everything. And thanks so much, Geoff.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.